Hi, thanks for watching. So, time to talk a bit about aliens. I've been promising for long enough. And actually, I live in a part of Wales in the United Kingdom known as the Dyfed Triangle because of a wave of UFO sightings in the 1970s. So there has been activity here, and I dare say there still is. It's only a few years ago I heard that there were rumours, anyway, I don't know how true they were, but there were rumours of aliens appearing quite regularly in a town not far from here, which I think was called... can't remember. Oh yeah, Portryd. It's kind of difficult to spell being a Welsh name. Portrhyd. Okay? You'll have to stop the video and go back and hear it again, so I'll never manage to repeat that and get it right. There weren't any sort of tales of abduction or anything like that, but it was actually the 4th of February 1975, so you know, a long time ago now, that this actually happened. And there's a school in a place called Broadhaven, which was the sort of epicentre of this alien activity. And all the children reported seeing a spaceman in a silver suit. And, you know, of course it was dismissed, wasn't it? It was bound to be dismissed because that's what people do when something comes up that they don't understand. And children are so good at seeing these things. You know, children haven't already been trained not to believe in magic or anything like that. So to them, wow, it's a spaceman. Well, we've heard of spacemen and here's one. The rest of us, you know, well, perhaps us watching this video would not be too far behind them in that degree of openness and understanding. But in the world, generally speaking, that's not the case, is it? So it was hushed up, as these things always are. But the children got together and they got a petition up, and they actually went to the police about it and everything, demanded that it was investigated properly. And so there was an investigation, and there was very, well, there's no doubt at all really that they'd seen something and that this had happened. And in my mind, there's no doubt that they saw whatever it is that we call aliens, whatever it is we call that kind of spaceship, because they were interviewed, a lot of the children were interviewed separately and did drawings, and all the drawings were very similar. You know, they had no chance to collaborate on it, but all the drawings were very similar. And people will call that mass hysteria and all kinds of things, but that just doesn't normally happen, is it? I mean, even in this part of Wales, we haven't had reports of that much activity in a long, long time. And I didn't actually live in Wales in those days, but, excuse me. Oh, we have lovely spring water. Just, you know, the normal water supply here comes from the mountains. It's beautiful. When I first moved to West Wales, this was 1990. I've been here about 30 years at the moment. So this was 1990, early 1990. And I was out with a friend of mine driving. I was driving and he was in the passenger seat. And we saw this very beautiful, quite large orb glowing. And it came up in front of the car, got closer and closer, and then it just lifted itself over a hedge. And I said to my friend, "Did you see that?" And he said, "Yes, yes." And it's actually very like experiences I've had along the way to becoming a spiritualist medium, but that is my way of understanding these things. Yes, I don't tell everyone else what they should think. I'm open to the idea of aliens and everything. Please let me know what you think about this in the comments below, because this is meant to be a discussion. Hopefully, if we all get talking, we'll eventually come up with something that no one's thought of in any of the other YouTube videos. Wouldn't that be fantastic? It would raise our understanding. And if there are aliens around, I'm sure that's what it's about somehow. There are all kinds of tales of destructive things, bad things that have happened to people. I do feel it's something to do with elevating the human condition somehow. Some people think maybe they're us, you know, aliens are us from the future being able to come back and do something that way. Who knows? As I keep saying, I'm no expert. I've only ever read one book about aliens, and it was... in that way, these things are always kind of dumbed down somehow. It was pushed as a kind of fiction book, but when you read it, you know, it was obviously real reports of things that people really had reported and really had said and really had experienced. And this book was called Communion and it's by Whitley Strieber. That's Whitley with a WH, as in Whitney Houston. And this was actually about 1985, 86, maybe even 87 actually, but no later than 1987 this book came out, and I bought it in Cardiff. And you know, it's really interesting to read those experiences, because on top of the actual descriptions of the experiences, there's a common thread and a whole extra element to it, in that people very slowly became aware that these experiences had happened. Sometimes they'd happened again and again, and they began to get an image in their mind of what was actually happening. Many of those stories tie up, many of them actually add up very well together, but these are different stories from different people who didn't know each other, and something happened and they thought, my God, I've got to go and report this. And that's just about all the research I've ever done on it, outside of listening to a guy called the Black Knight of talk radio. What's his show called again? I should know, I used to listen to it all the time. I'll think of it. Feet to the Fire, that's it. Feet to the Fire. And his website, I believe, is feet2fire.com. And there's loads and loads of radio interviews there from his talk radio shows, which go back to, I think, 2004, something like that. He's been going a long time. And there's Bill Burns, there's all, you know, the regular kind of UFO people you've heard of, and there's people talking about their own experiences, that kind of thing. And it really does add up and make a lot of sense to me. I suppose the difference between me and a lot of people who believe in aliens is, well, there's more than one, but one of them is that I actually live in an area which is renowned for them, and even though, you know, this wave of sightings that began the whole tradition of the Dyfed Triangle happened in the 1970s. Currently in this area, it's just a very magical area, and there are all kinds of happenings that people don't quite expect, and, you know, we can't ever quite explain completely. Sometimes it's glaringly obvious that there's some kind of either divine intervention or, you know, alien life forces or whatever it is, but there's something cosmic, some kind of information coming from the outer universe to us. Seems crazy, and people would call it crazy, and even though, you know, I'm sitting here talking to you and we all have some kind of opinion about this, or I guess you wouldn't bother watching the video, the rest of our lives out there in the real world we have to spend with people who don't believe these kinds of things. The parallels with this, my friends, between this and spiritualism are massive. Now, I'll say it again, spiritualism is just my way of understanding all of these things. I was drawn to this house in particular by an experience I had on Glastonbury Tor in 1988. I was up on the top of the Tor because it was going to be the 8th of the 8th, 88, which was a harmonic convergence of dates, and the time actually, because it was 8 minutes past 8 in the morning of that day. So really, I suppose this was actually on the 7th of the 8th. I can't really remember, but it was in the middle of the night, so it might have been the 8th. Anyway, it was a big happening. There was a circle dance going on, and there were people who lived in horse-drawn caravans, and probably still do live in horse-drawn caravans. And one of them had brought the horse right up the way to the top of Glastonbury Tor, which is a very, very tall, not quite a mountain, it's on the Somerset levels though, so it's really very, very high. It's just man-made thing, you know, no question about that. And there was this horse in the dancing circle, very, very magical time. And I went into the tower, and if you look up Glastonbury Tor, I'm afraid I'm not great at splicing images into videos at the moment, I'm trying to learn. But if you Google Glastonbury Tor and have a look, it's an amazing, it's a church tower, and it's from St. Michael's Church, which used to be up there, and the tower is still there, the rest of the church is long gone. Very, very magical place, and I looked up, and I was expecting to see a ceiling of the sort of ground floor of the tower, but there's nothing there. It is actually open to the elements because all the wood is rotted away years ago. And I looked up into the sky and I saw the most amazing pattern, which people would think I was mad, you know, if I said I definitely saw it, but I'm sure I definitely saw it. And to me, it feels real. And to me, it's evidence, you know, that there's something great, there's something more powerful. But that journey led me to this house. Now this house is in an area called Preseli, which, as well as being in the Dyfed area and not far from Broadhaven, certainly quite a hot spot in this area for UFO sightings and alien goings on, shall we say. It covers a broad range of things. Preseli is where the Blue Stones came from, which are in the centre portion of Stonehenge, the inner circle of Stonehenge, made out of Preseli Blue Stone, which comes not far from here. And it's 3 hours drive on the motorway, which is like the interstate. You know, it's our biggest, it's not that big, it's got like 3 lanes each side, it's British. But yeah, we're allowed to drive at 70 miles an hour on there, so how cool is that? When you're driving down that road, because I go to Glastonbury Tor and I revisit it, you become aware of how far that is, because, you know, 70 miles an hour, it's more than a mile a minute, and it takes about 3 hours to get there from here. And somehow somebody, all those years ago, managed to get those stones there. Legend has it that Merlin flew them across the sea. And this place is where I live here is actually only about 14 miles from a place called Carmarthen, and in Welsh the name of Merlin is Myrddin, and it's said to have been where Merlin, you know, lived and operated for, you know, certainly in the last days of his life. Llewellyn the Great is buried not too far from here either. So we've got all this magic going on. It's fascinating, and they say Merlin flew the Preseli Blue Stones across the sea. That seems really out there, but here's a theory that I got from Feet to the Fire, from the Black Knight himself. The theory is, right, that the world is very, very slowly expanding, incredibly slowly, you know. But if, as many people believe, and as I believe, that there have been many civilizations going back hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions of years, then there was a time when the Earth was very small, and because of that, the spinning wouldn't have created much gravity as we have now, and maybe it wouldn't have been impossible to get those stones to fly across the sea. That's one definite possibility, but that's going to make either Stonehenge or those stones a lot older than we thought they were. But, you know, carbon dating is very much in the arms of the establishment. You know, it's slightly controversial. They can say it means whatever it suits them to say it means. And we know they do that with everything else, so why wouldn't they do it with this kind of thing? But coming back to my spiritual explanation of it for myself, that experience on Glastonbury Tor, which to me was actually very close to an alien experience, because I was seeing things in the sky that joined together by beams of light that were certainly not of this earth. That's all I can say, and all I can describe them as is fantastic colours. Absolutely amazing. Gosh, it fills me up when I think about it, actually, because that was quite an experience. But that has led me directly to this house where I live now, and being in this house has brought lots of those coincidences that we all know aren't really coincidences, but lots of those coincidences that happen in life, which have led me into the crystal journey, the healing journey, into spiritualism. I actually learned to do spiritualism at first online, to do psychic readings and mediumship readings on a site called Psychic Night, which belonged to Michelle Knight about 10 years ago. And a chap on there taught me a lot, and that sparked me off to go further and learn more. And I ended up working in spiritualist churches, and everything I do in spiritualism, whether it's psychic readings, anything at all, you know, everything I think about the angels and everything, it all ties up to that experience that I had that seemed very much to me to be about aliens when I was on Glastonbury Tor. So that's the explanation I come up with. I'm also a great believer in the divine, and in that sense I'm sure that God, or whatever God is overseeing these things. This doesn't always mean it's going to be a bowl of cherries, of course, very far from it, but it does mean that it's all part of the learning, it's all part of the lessons, and somehow we are going to understand more about aliens one day. I'd put money on it, excuse me. I'd absolutely put money on it. Think of the discoveries we've made with computers. As a small child, right, to watch anything on a screen, it had to be television, and the television was a huge cumbersome thing, which, because it had to go in a corner because it was so deep with the, you know, the old CRT TVs, it just took up a vast amount of the room. It changed the whole living space and cost a lot of money, you know, even more than things like that cost these days. And really, you know, it was massive. And now I'm talking to you, actually using an iPhone. No, sorry, an iPod, and I've got it up on a tripod in front of me. The tripod is bigger than the actual camera of the actual iPod. Insane. And nobody ever, when I was young, would have thought this would have actually ever been physically possible at all. But because this is the internet, because this is modern technology, because there's so much invested in the cutting edge, we've got here, we've made it happen. So one day surely we're going to be able to overcome things like the Fermi paradox, or at least we're going to be able to find a way of communicating despite the Fermi paradox, because that's the kind of people we are. You know, human beings have a great deal of genius. That genius isn't always allowed to come out, but I'm sure everyone has got some in them. So friends, that's what I've got to say about aliens. One day soon we will do a live a live stream about aliens, and you know, we can have a bit of back and forth and a chat about it. I'd love to know what you think. Please let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already, or is it on that side? I'm never sure, but subscribe. It's that red triangle, it's got subscribe in it, so that's how you know. Click on that. Please also do check out the brand spanking new Twig Brother Facebook page. On Facebook it's just Twig Brother, and I've attempted to put an actual kind of cover photo on there, and it's like, it's only got half of Twig Brother, it's like Twig Brother or something like that, and a picture of me, which is bad enough, isn't it? But no, head on over to Facebook, loads of fun and games coming up there, and you know, psychic readings, articles, things that may not actually ever end up on YouTube are going to be there for something a bit special. I did talk about the Twig Brother website. I had it all set up, but then I tried to get the domain name for it, and there shouldn't be a problem, I don't know, but my phone just kept crashing every time I was trying to do it. So who knows, there isn't a Twig Brother yet, there isn't a proper Twig Brother website yet, that's what I'm trying to say. But there is a Twig Brother Facebook page, so check it out. Also, if you do subscribe, you're in with a chance of winning the amazing medieval clock, which I don't have to hand, but there'll be a stack of videos somewhere on YouTube, somewhere very near this one, maybe down the side, maybe underneath it, I don't know. But somewhere it's out there, showing you all about the medieval clock. That's going to be given away to a subscriber. Do leave me a comment if you're interested in that. I haven't yet managed to find a list of subscribers, and I don't know if there is such a thing, so I'm going to have to go off the comments with that one. So leave me a comment, we will share the journey. Give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed the video. If you haven't, you know what to do. I'll be around again soon. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.